where it was very clear. And I literally was told, oh, look at you. You're so cute. Little Barbie trying to be an attorney.
Wow.
And I thought...
Hello again, and thank you for watching the Few podcast or listening. We ask that you like and subscribe, and we're across any channel you can tune into a podcast or even watch us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I'm with my co-host, Madison Evans. Hello, Madison.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm excited again. We just keep having one after another powerhouses. You know, this is season 2, episode 2. We're bringing in a personal friend, but also somebody that I've used as an attorney, and she is phenomenal. Valerie Powers Smith. You're going to be captivated by this interview every step of the way. Valerie is a very smart and dynamic and a great storyteller. She's got a lot for us and a great history to listen to about sort of her journey and her personal trailblazing journey in a male-dominated world.
Yeah.
And she's a great inspiration for, let's say, my daughters, for you, for everybody, just to look up to. So I can't wait for us to basically share this episode. Well, welcome to the studio. Valerie Powers Smith is very accomplished in her own right, an attorney, a partner, a philanthropist, just a dynamo in everything she does. We're going to learn a lot more today with Valerie. Thank you for being in our studio, and I can't wait to share, but you're also a great friend. Valerie is a phenomenal attorney. We're going to get into your areas of specialty, but you helped us, our family.
Yes.
You helped. My daughter had a medical procedure, actually, that wasn't covered, but should have been covered by the insurance company to the tune of $70,000, 2 surgeries, couple of procedures. And I brought it to you and I said, Valerie, this is unheard of by even their own textbook, of what they would cover. The insurance company, they should be covering this. It shouldn't be out of pocket. And lo and behold, you got them. And I'm telling you, if you ever need somebody to be on your side, you definitely want Valerie in your corner because you went above and beyond.
Thank you.
But not only just doing your job in exceptional fashion and exceeding expectations, but your standard of care, handling our family, understanding my daughter, spending time with my daughter, and then also when it was time to fight, you fought and you protected our family and protected my daughter and, made the insurance company do the right thing. So first and foremost, I didn't get the chance to say thank you many times over. Thank you. So
thank you. It's
you're
my
very
pleasure.
special to our heart. And wonderful to have Valerie in your corner, first and foremost. I saw your great work firsthand. So Valerie, tell me a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, your childhood, and we'll go through sort of the evolution in this episode today of who Valerie is.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So I'm what we call a transplant out here in the desert. My mother immigrated in her early 20s from Scotland after her father passed away very early. My dad is probably one of the most, no longer with us, but the proudest American patriot. And so that was a really interesting combination to be brought up with a Scottish lass and an American guy. My dad had all girls, and so he raised us to kind of see no gender, and we were doing everything that you might think. I was a big Barbie girl, but I was also out there gardening and carrying wood in, and my dad had us when we were young with target practice with guns because he was a federal firearms licensed dealer as well as a big hunter. He made me go through a safety class. We had a 3-wheeler that we were racing around with the guys in the neighborhood as kids in the snow, and so we just did everything that everyone else does. And as a result, I really grew up not seeing that. So if boys were supposed to do well in sports, well, so was I. I was playing soccer with them as a kid. If they're supposed to be doing well in science and math, well, so was I. I'm in the lab with them doing that. I just never saw it that way. And I think one of the first times as I've had to reflect about being a woman or being a girl was when I was in 7th grade. There was about 5 of us, I think, that tried out for the soccer team because they didn't have a girls' soccer team. And we grew up in an association, and we were like, what are you talking about that there's no girls' soccer? Made the boys' team, playing with the same boys that we've grown up with. Moms then got upset, saying they're going to get hurt. They're older now because we were about 13. We got marched down to the field hockey field, got sticks put in our hands, said, you guys now play field hockey.
Oh, wow.
And we looked at each other like, we don't even know what this is. Yeah. We all turned out to be really good at it and loved it. But it was the first time, I think, as a kid that I was told, no, girls don't do that.
Interesting.
And I don't think I really thought anything other than like, oh, wow, I'm learning a new sport, because I played all sorts of sports all year round. My dad had us in softball. But that was really the first time as a kid that I felt the difference there. And then as you're going towards your education, apparently at 5, I said I want to be an attorney. And my parents thought, where did you get that from? Because I come from a medical focused family. There's no attorneys. I don't know how I ever came up with that. But I never saw it as I'm going into a male-dominated field. I think I thought firemen, police, maybe that was male-dominated, but I just never saw it that way until I got to law school. And it was very noticeable, 2 things: heavily male-dominated, and any woman who was there, with the exception of maybe a handful of girls, well, women at that time, were all middle-aged. They had supported their husbands through their careers. They had raised children, and now this was their chance to do what they wanted to do. And so I'm 21, went through school, didn't take a break. The most common would people take of my age range would be they took a year or 2 off between college and law school. So it was very interesting to be, going in law school along your parents, age. But I never felt in that moment, other than the demographics looking different, I didn't feel like I was competing any differently with a boy versus girl. And it wasn't really until I had my first trial as an attorney where it was very clear. And I literally was told, oh, look at you. You're so cute. Little Barbie trying to be an attorney.
Wow.
And I thought that could have been a moment where I could have, had the boo-boo lip and cried or been upset. Because it's very emotional when you first start practicing law. There's so much you don't know. The stakes are so high. And everyone expects that you know everything because you have a degree and, you've passed the bar. So I just said to myself, okay, wait to see what I accomplish when you're not watching. And so that's when I started channeling. I'm a female attorney and I'm going to hone those skills. So I'm going to be super sweet. I'm going to be polite. I would even act like I was not dumb, but I'm not really sure. Where is the policy, or where does it say in this regulation that my client's not entitled to this particular service? Oh, well, I couldn't find it. Let me show you it. Oh, it's not there? Oh, well, maybe it's here. And I would go through that scenario and they would admit things because they were like, you're so polite. Right. And there was like they were trying to help you because you look like, I had long, really blonde hair and, I looked young. But I won that particular case despite
Fantastic.
The opposing counsel and the judge. They were talking about their golf over the weekend. They were part of the same club.
Boys Club.
Yeah. So, I felt like it was up against me when you already had a huge challenge from a legal perspective. Oh, great. Now I've got their buddies. They think I'm playing. They don't even think I'm serious. They don't even recognize me as an actual attorney. Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I love going back to sort of how you were raised. Someone told me years ago, gave me a book called Strong Daughters, Strong Fathers, or Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. Mm-hmm. And, I have 3 daughters. And so again, that gender sort of blindness as to one of my daughters, Ashley was a dynamo. She still is a dynamo athlete, but loved football and was playing with the boys all the way up until she couldn't. And the day we told her that there's no female at the time, NFL, she cried. Like, you can't play in the NFL. Yeah. And so now she's doing track and field and cross country, and she's loving life in college. But yeah, we raised our daughters to be extremely strong. We raised our daughters to say, why not me?
Right.
Why can't I? And there really shouldn't be a differentiation, whether it's in the classroom or on the field, as it relates to what they could accomplish. Right. So I love that story. Going back to sort of your trial, and even today, as it relates to the law or the courtroom, do you see that gender bias, or is it sort of evening out a little bit?
I think in the desert, the demographic is really good. I think that it's balanced, particularly in my area of practice of trust estates. So the probate bar, as we refer to it, I think has a really, I would argue, equal. It seems there's many female attorneys in this area as there are men. Where you start seeing, and I don't want to say like a horrible word, but a recent case that I litigated for a year and about 8 months, and we've just been coming out of it. a high level of misogyny in more of the LA area of the court system. And I've been practicing now for 28 years. And sometimes female peers will make comments, and I still have to reflect like, oh, I don't think it's because they're male. I just think that person's a jerk or that person's discourteous. Right. But in this particular case, I really had to listen to my co-counsel that there was something going on there. And it harkens back to what I said earlier, that we were just two little girls messing around. We didn't know what we were talking about. We literally would just be dismissed when we would start talking. We're crazy. We're hysterical. Why are you being so dramatic? Don't get so emotional. And we'd say, like, if you were talking to one of the male attorneys, would you say they were being emotional? No, he would just be a jerk. Why do we have to be emotional?
Right.
You know, the same thing. We accomplished things that were diabolical to their side because they stopped watching us and they weren't paying attention to us. And I said to my colleague, let's not let them get our feathers off. Let's go do what we do, and then they'll start paying attention. And they started paying attention.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, I think it's regional, and probably the larger legal communities probably still have more dominated with male in the practice, but you navigate around it. It's nice to have to confront that, having these many years of experience behind you, because it just doesn't bother you the same way it would as a young one.
Isn't that incredible? So, you're in the legal profession, and in Wall Street, historically speaking, it's rampant, right? And so I was at my former firm over a decade ago, and I said, when my mom went through her particular situation, my dad got sick, and she was not only dealing with, all the finances and tax conversations and estate planning, but also helping dad through the Mayo Clinic and then the team of doctors. She had to learn all these different languages. Of course, she had my brother and myself to help her. And that's why I say the 7 keys of building a network of support before you get there is quite so important. But when this was thrust upon me and helping my mom, I said, there's a lot of women in this world. If you look at sort of the demographics, there's a lot of transition. In fact, there's going to be over $70 trillion of wealth transfer over the next decade, and large majority that's going to fall in the hands of women. So women need to be prepared before that actually takes place. But I was at my firm before, and I started saying this concept of the Society of the Few, financially empowered women. I want to do seminars. I want to do educational platform. I want to have, maybe a one-day event where we can have the Confidence Summit. And in my former firm, the old guards, if you will, guys who've been in Wall Street 20, 30, 40 years, looked at me and said, don't waste your time. And that infuriated me. That, I have my wife, my mom, my little girls, and majority of Wall Street was completely blind to even serving this growing demographic that's going to be in charge of everything, but more importantly, needs that partnership and that education every step of the way. And as you said, maybe in my household, the kitchen table was very traditional. My dad was first generation in this country. Came through Ellis Island. So he was in charge of the finances. So that transfer of conversation, my mom's very brilliant, very bright, even better investor, come to find out, than my dad has been through the years, but just needs that support around her. But yeah, that bias has been rampant in just about every single industry that we've seen, but it's changing.
Yes, it is.
You're changing it. I'm changing it.
I'm trying.
One step at a time, one day at a time, which is wonderful.
If you're enjoying the podcast, we have a really exciting announcement. February 7th of 2025, we're having a one-day event at the Omni Rancho Las Palmas in Rancho Mirage, California. It's an amazing event centered around everything that we've talked about in the podcast, from female financial empowerment to wellness empowerment. Some of the guests that we've had on the podcast already will be at the summit, so it'll be a chance for you to see and hear from them again. You can purchase tickets at cw3confidencesummit.com, and we hope to see you there. And back to the podcast.
So I do talk a lot about, how strong my mom is and how we support her. And that was actually sort of my first model of my mom was always that person that says, well, why can't I do this, or why can't you, Robert or Stephen, do this? You can. She always supported us. And so I was always attracted to that independence, that strong, female figure. My mom was such a great, model for that for me. That's why I love my wife, Jenica. She's so strong and independent. And that's how we raised our daughters as well. And so tell me about your family, your mom and that aspect.
So I'm just building up as you're asking about my mom, because my mom is no longer with us. And she is an absolute part of me, always was. I know she's listening, and I know she'd be shocked for me to say that I am who I am because of her. And she would say, you are everything that I never was, or that I never thought I could be, or I never thought myself to be. My mom was shy. My mom grew up in a system in England I should say in Scotland, in the UK, where at a certain age, you get a tap on the shoulder. And there's decisions that are made when someone is an adolescent. What are they going to be doing intellectually? What kind of a career do you see them going into? And you go on to do what they call their A levels and their O levels, to go on to university, and you're going to go work in a shop, or you're going to be this or that. And my mother was the latter. And so she worked one of their stores as Marks and Spencer's. She went into retail, and her educational career was over. My husband's best friend who lives in Boston, that happened to him now. He's in Boston, and he only has to work half the year because he's such a successful broker. So it shows you how people are late starters or bloomers. But the point of me saying that is, I think my mom always, as an adult, didn't feel she was bright, because that happened to her when she was like 13, 14 years old. But I'll tell you, no one could beat my mom at Trivial Pursuit. I don't know how she knew the stuff that she knew, but she was so bright with that. And she just was this silent, under the radar, angelic human being who was grateful for everything that she had as an immigrant. And she was just a force of nature, because her family, her kids, her grandkids, there was nothing she wouldn't do to make sure that you would achieve whatever your greatness was supposed to be. But I think that she wouldn't say she was a strong woman, or that she was the role model and I'm who I am because of her, but it's absolutely true. And I think because of my dad was bold, she was quiet. And I think that combination made me who I was. And my mom just kind of silently was, you will achieve whatever it is you want. I will support it, but you will always be able to support yourself. And so the person who I married is a result of that, because my mom instilled in me, go pursue your career, hone your craft. The guy will come later.
That's excellent.
And you will bring him into your life because you want to, not because you need him. And everything that you want in this life, you can achieve. And it's not to diminish that person, but that person's going to be your partner and your champion. And Mark, so that is true. And, talking about that whole dynamic of being who I am, failed relationships were as a result of someone wanting to silence me, or for me to just stand there and look a certain way and not talk. Literally, the guy who I was with before I met Mark was, would you not tell my friends that you're an attorney and don't talk about your work? I don't talk about my work when I'm in social situations anyway, but he just wanted me to stand there, and look pretty. Don't let people know you have a mind. And I thought, I really like you, but that's just not my thing. My thing is my mind. And I've worked really hard at honing what I feel I was given in terms of that, because that's not going away, hopefully.
I love what you said. And I want my daughters to watch exactly what you just said, because you're a wonderful role model. But I'll tell you this, your mom's watching from high above, and she's very proud of you. And we're very impressed. And your parents have done such a phenomenal job. And you're an excellent role model in everything that you do and for the community. And especially that's why we're doing this today is I need role models. The world needs role models like you, not only for, my daughters to see and look up to, but everyone to be inspired by. So you've done an exceptional job.
Thank you.
Let's get to some fun right now. Let's talk about Valerie on her personal side. I know your husband Mark, fabulous guy. But what do you do? What does Valerie do for fun? What kind of trouble do you get into?
Well, 4 years ago, I got into a lot of trouble when I fractured and dislocated my patella, as associated with an injury in polo. But people always say, "How was your weekend?" I said, "Mark, puppies, polo, repeat."
Yeah.
So every morning the alarm goes off at 5:15. I've got to get up. I get the dogs sorted. We have 2 rescue German Shepherd mixes. That those are I always say my kids have fur or hair.
Yeah, fur babies.
And then I get in my truck, drive down to Thermal for my polo ponies. I own 4, but we have an operation. My best friend and I, we have 13 altogether. Have a full-time groom that is down there, and exercise them every morning. And that is my therapy. 4 legs, 1,000 pounds.
That's incredible.
Animals. And I love it. And I thought about you this morning when I was on the track, because I found myself one of 20, horses and 4 men. And there's me tooting around on my big gelding and just loving it. But it's also an area where I don't really know what the statistic is. I heard maybe over the past 5 to 6 years, it's one of the fastest growing female athletic, a new athletic activity for women getting into the sport. And people argue that the female polo players are rougher than, the men.
I wouldn't want to get in the middle of that.
Out there. So, but that's what I do for fun.
Wow.
I don't know how to explain what it is about horses. They absolutely send me. The scent, that you just get the hug of their neck.
Absolutely gorgeous creatures.
Yeah, and you literally, people have said this, but unless you've done it and you're on them, they literally help you fly.
Wow.
When they canter, it is this amazing experience that you really have to continue to focus, because you can lose yourself in it. But it's a wonderful way for me to start my day. It gives me perspective, because there is just this inherent goodness in them, and the area that I deal with has a lot of darkness with the death, with people fighting over things in terms of the trust and estate litigation. And they help me get up and go to work every day.
That's awesome. That's great.
So,
well, it's good trouble to get into.
Yeah.
And they love you and you love them. How do you choose which one to ride? Or you ride them each one a day, or?
Well, they know their schedule.
Okay.
And they can get they can get pretty salty when I've changed it, or if something has happened, or if they have an injury. Like one of my geldings right now is 30 days post a tendon injury, and he's letting me know every day that he is not pleased that I'm not riding him.
Oh.
Yeah. So you got to deal with that. They're like kids.
Okay.
But yeah, they each have their schedule, and then I double up on the weekends so that I can get 3, to 4 rides on each of them. But yeah, they know their schedule.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
We have 4 dogs.
4.
2 pugs.
Okay.
And then 2 black labs. And interestingly enough, I have them stay when I put down their food, and then we bless the food.
Oh, how cute.
And then I say, when I say amen, then they go.
Are you serious?
So far, so good. Dear Lord, we ask you bless this food, to bless our bodies, to do your will. In your name, amen. And that's how it's done. But I know how when you said saltiness, one of my black labs gets to me, and like, if we're not on a schedule or something's off, and he's nudging me, and animals have an amazing intuition and amazing style of communication.
They do.
They keep us in line as well.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but with my communication in the area that I deal with, I have some people who they can't find their words. I've got individuals who are nonverbal, or because of the fight or the psychological damage or the grief that they're bringing to the table, you have to be able to pick up on nonverbal communication and the power particularly, I mean, it started with dogs, but particularly with horses, the privilege when they let you in and they can tell you. And, if anyone checks my Facebook or Instagram, you will see one of my horses that I ask him, are you a good boy? Nodding. Do you want another slice of apple? Yes.
Wow.
Like they communicate with you. And I think that opening yourself up to that increases your ability to hear, to sense, to be more intuitive and to communicate and better serve your clients. At least that's, my justification for having all of them.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Valerie at work. What specifically are you focused on? What do you lean into? If I were, looking for an estate planning attorney, what would I be looking for?
I would say the way that I approach it, I see this area as we are shepherds to get people through a process. No one wants to talk about that they're going to be dying or that they're going to lose their capacity at some point or that there's going to be a time they're not here to care for their children if you have minor children, or just I want to see a full life. I've raised these children. And so people don't want to talk about death. And so I try to add levity to it. So my famous joke is that I'll have, two people sitting in front of me and they'll say, well, if I died, I go,
Right.
you will.
Yeah.
And so let's have one scenario where you die first and you get to die first, the other time, and try to make them laugh about it. Because it's like, folks, look, like this is something that's going to happen and we have to deal with it. It's also about bringing them to the table and getting them to understand what their finances look like. Because I'm trying to prepare them also that one of you will die.
Yep.
And one of you are not going to have your arms around what it costs to be you. The amount of people who have come into me after a spouse has died and they don't know what it costs to be them. And people may be saying, well, what do you mean by that? They have no idea. They may have an idea of what the assets are, but they don't know what's going out. They had no idea what's coming in. And they'll bring me like a bag of bills from the past year. And I have to do this spreadsheet to try to figure out what they're paying, whether they can sustain it, how long they can sustain it, what changes they may want to make. So I feel like it's at that stage shepherding them through what is going to come, because not only are we doing the planning, but we're helping with the administration, whether it's an estate or trust after they've died. Depending on how they've structured it, it's assisting the trustees and the beneficiaries of understanding why the person created it the way they did. And then the unfortunate aspect that, I hope this makes sense, death should be an event that is a lifetime event that people grieve, they move through the process. We want to move them through the legal aspects or financial aspects so they can do the psychological work to be healthy and learn how to deal with the grief and how you go forward in life. Unfortunately, a lot of what I have to do is the fighting. So I try to spend a lot of time at the estate planning stage. So in answer to your question, you should look for a counselor. You should not look for a scrivener. A scrivener is someone who's just going to plug in your names into whatever template or software and isn't going to ask you aspects of your family, about your finances, what you want to do, get to the underbelly. Look, we all have issues within the family.
Yes.
Let's talk about them now so I can document it. I know how to prepare. And how do you protect the people who aren't problematic that you're trying to leave the business to? And I always say you got to think about what's the carrot that you put in your plan to incentivize someone not to cause trouble because you value the people who are going to end up paying for it. How do you do that? And how do you structure? And then counseling, like, what does it look like when someone passes away? What are the logistics of how this language is going to play out? Because sometimes people say, I want to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'll say, okay, now read it in the trust. And these are all the questions I have.
Interesting.
Is that what you meant? Because this is what it's going to happen.
Right.
Do you have, I want such and such to get $4,000 a month for the rest of their life. Do you have $3 million just sitting around that's going to go there? And what's going to, I'm not giving him $3 million. Well, then how are you funding this? Right. So it's helping people understand that and then trying to prepare, because not all the trust estate litigation that I get am I involved in the front end. But kind of trying to help the ones that we are and then dealing with the people who aren't. But we're really trying to, I do this every day. I love court. I'm not afraid of being in court, but I have the fortitude to be able to sustain the stress, the acrimony, and the cost obviously is not impacting me, it's impacting you. But I try to get people to understand that. And then come back to the estate planner stage and say, I'm asking you this because I am literally litigating this case right now. I don't want to see you have to deal with that. So let's put different language in, or different contingencies, or different aspects of your planning to try to stop that. You can't make anything 100%, fail proof. But if you talk about the difficult topics and you try to really flesh them out, or at least give me substantial information where I can fully document, because I might be someone who's defending it or called to defend it. And so, that's kind of how I see my role. But I also, ironically, have a team of female paralegals, female attorneys, because I need 6 people to be me. For what we have to do. And, shout out to there is a male paralegal that we have come in for litigation. But my main core team, I have 3 other female attorneys and 2 female paralegals. And so I looked around one day and thought, this was not by, selection. I guess it was just by,
You're looking for the greatest minds, and that's what you got.
That's what I have. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I think that there's a certain attraction to the female approach to certain things, maybe more family focused. I hate to say that because I know that you're a very strong family man, but I think that there are certain aspects from the more matriarchal kind of nurturing perspective that we might think of. But it works for us.
That's great. And I will tell you this, in our wealth management practice, you and I basically are serving the same client, if you will.
Yeah.
And as I referenced earlier, the great wealth transfer is going to occur, and being prepared for that. But also, Jenica and I, we have to come see you again, or have to come see you because I need you to review our estate plan. But when we did it years ago, my question is, how often should somebody refresh an existing, have their estate planning looked at, reviewed, and then is it every 3 years, every 5 years? When the estate planning law changes, what do you usually recommend?
I say to people, I know you're not going to do this, but you should be looking at it annually. You meet with your financial advisor, you do your taxes. You should also be looking at all legal aspects. And why would you be doing that? Well, is there a significant impact, particularly in California planning? Do you have assets accurately reflected on your schedule of the trust? Because although I don't always have someone like you on the other side to make sure they do their homework and get things titled in their trust, invariably we're dealing with, well, why did we do the trust, but you left this major asset in your name, or you didn't assign this business interest, and now we're in court, which we were trying to avoid, to try to have to probate that asset or try to push it in, via a Hegseth petition into the trust. And so I say to people to do that. I know they probably laugh at me. So the best way to really trigger people are, what are life events? Okay. So births, if there are additional children, deaths, loss of capacity, if you get married, if someone's divorced, if someone within your pool has had anything. What I mean by that is fiduciaries who aren't living anymore, fiduciaries who have significant health conditions that you don't think that they can serve. You may have named certain fiduciaries when you had younger children, and now you want your children to be in those roles. And so long as they're at a certain age, it might be appropriate once they're, adults to do that. If you've had significant wealth changes, if you've moved states and there's specific language that needs to be in any aspect of your estate plan, or changed, things like that, I say, are the triggers that people should be looking at.
One of the things that you helped us with, and it didn't even occur to us, was when my daughter was in college. She turned 18 and she was going through some medical issues.
Right.
And so, Jenica would be her medical advocate. But as soon as she had her 18th birthday in the state of California, Jenica got no access to any information, and it was all, privy to Taylor specific. Yeah. And as parents, we were like thrown back, like, wait a minute, from day one, we wiped your, butt all the way through. And now all of a sudden, she has her own rights, and we understand why they're there. Right. But you had to, get us sort of the medical advocacy proper forms to turn over to the university, to turn over to the medical institutions, for us then to have that information. And then, because my daughter at that time had no clue how to navigate her own, medical life, and immediately a birth or a birthday
Yep.
and the world changes, legally speaking. And that was, we were thankful for you and helping us with that.
Yeah.
But no one's really prepared for any of this.
No. And imagine how a parent of someone with special needs
Yeah.
who has intellectual disabilities, same thing as you said, like, I've been taking care of this child
Yeah.
since he or she's been born.
It's crazy.
What do you mean now I don't have authority? And so that's why some people have to go the conservatorship route, because they can't do those documents that you did. But yeah, an 18-year-old doesn't automatically have all this knowledge that they didn't as a
Yeah,
17-year-old and can navigate, particularly when they're trying to navigate medical information, or having to go against an insurance company, which I love doing.
Yeah, and you're excellent at it for sure. Nobody's better than that. Well, Valerie, thank you for being here today. We really enjoyed our conversation. I was mesmerized, literally just listening.
Thank
So
you.
a lot of great advice, a lot of great wisdom. There's no question why you're such a dynamo in everything that you do. And thank you for sharing this time with us today.
Thank you.
So Valerie, we're going to have, you're going to be a wonderful guest speaker at our upcoming CW3 Confidence Summit, Women, Wealth, and Wellness, February 7th of 2025, next year. And you've joined us in the past, and you've done such an amazing job. So I can't wait to be in the audience watching you on stage and all the panelists just sharing your wealth of wisdom. And looking forward to that.
Thank you. I am too.
Thank you everyone for watching. This episode is sponsored by Schein Wealth Management. We've been in the Coachella Valley for 40 years and we're built for the next 40 years. You can find us at BlankyShineWealthManagement.com. And now back to the episode.
Well, that episode did not disappoint. Valerie is fantastic. Again, I'm going to rewatch it. I'm going to have my daughters watch that one. But yeah, we're going to have her back for sure.
Yes, she was wonderful.
And in honoring Valerie, we're going to have Madison read a couple of quotes that are very near and dear to her heart.
Valerie sent us these two quotes. The first one is from Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it goes, "I want to be remembered as someone who used whatever talent she had to do her work to the very best of her ability and to help repair tears in her society to make things a little better through the use of whatever ability she has." And the second one is by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, and it reads, "As women achieve power, the barriers will fall. As society sees what women can do, as women see what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things, and we'll all be better off for it." Thank you again for listening to episode 2 of season 2. Make sure to come back for episode 3. We have another powerhouse woman who is a great example of everything that we talked about in season 1.
This podcast is brought to you by David Field Producer. It is produced and directed by David Field and Kristen George. And it's mix, edit, and socials by Kristen George. Schein Wealth Management is a group of investment professionals registered with Hightower Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, and with Hightower Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities, LLC. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is not indicative of current or future performance and is not a guarantee. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data and information referenced herein are from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analysis, prices, or other information contained in this research is provided as general market commentary. It does not constitute investment advice. Schein Wealth Management and Hightower shall not in any way be liable for claims and make no expressed or implied representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the data and other information, or for statements or errors contained in or omissions from the obtained data and information referenced herein. The data and information are provided as of the date referenced. Such data and information are subject to change without notice. This document was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are solely those of Schein Wealth Management and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates.